in the crystal chambers. Baby girl's here with me. If you hear the lawnmower, I apologize because Chris is out mowing the lawn. I promised you all that I'd start out talking about grids this week, so I decided to put a bunch of crystals on the plate and work up a grid today. The first thing I want to do, and I do this with all the crystals, is I want to clear any past intentions off of these things or any bad energy that they've absorbed the last 30 days or so. So you see I've got the sage burning here and the abalone shell. To cleanse them, all you do is just wave them in the sage smoke here. Now I'm going to do that with each crystal. I don't know exactly which one of these crystals I'll use in my grid, but it's what I have available in the scheme that I want to design today. So I want to cleanse each one just in case they get used. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll be right back. Alright guys, welcome back. I've cleansed my crystals with the sage. I also have my pendulum here that I made last week. I'll show you what we're going to be doing with these. I do offer them for sale, custom ordered. They're not on the shop because they're custom only. So if you're interested in a pendulum, just let me know. Get a hold of me on Facebook, email me, give me a phone call, and we'll get that started for you. Alright, now on my tray today, one of the most asked questions about grids, particular grids, people want to know how to do wealth grids. Wealth, abundance, prosperity, especially in times like these when money is a little scarce for everyone. So I want to do a wealth grid today, my example of one, just to kind of show you what goes into it and what kind of crystals to use. I don't, as I said, I don't know which crystals particularly I'm going to use out of these, but these are all the crystals that I have chosen for wealth, abundance, and prosperity. Now, I try not to do more than 3 different types of crystals because there is a little crystal chaos that would happen in the grid if you start layering up different types of crystals. So I try to just keep it simple and to the point. And you also have to have some quartz in here, as we mentioned quite a few times. Quartz will power up your crystals and keep the energy on the grid moving quite well. We also need a crystal point to activate the grid. These are called the supporting stones here. And then we have the middle stone, which technically it is supposed to stand on its own, but I do not have one out here right now that stands on its own. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the point of citrine that lays down. It'll be fine. Plus this is pretty large, so. And your middle stone you want to be the largest stone that you have. It should be a stone that is encompassed in the main grid layout itself. You will set it in the center and it will act as like a conductor that will pull the energy through the grid and up into the universe. So that is very important. And I also have these chips here, which I'm not sure if any of you know, but this is a good thing to like sprinkle onto your grid when you're done. I have Adventurine and I also have Citrine chips, so we're going to use that as well. Alright, so let's get started here. First thing I want to go over is what is a crystal grid. Some of you may not know. Crystal grid is a geometric pattern of energetically aligned stones charged by your intentions. It's set in a sacred space for the purpose of manifesting a particular objective. Now, is this magic? You know, there are some people who think this is magic. And no, it's not magic. Magic actually is just a term people like to assign to unknown science. I mean, like 100 years ago, an iPad probably would have been considered magic. So no, this is not magic. This is science. There's a scientific procedure we're going to go through, and I'm going to walk you through that. A crystal grid incorporates the use of crystals and stones because of their precise vibratory frequency. Each stone has its own specific energy vibration, which we can use for manifesting our intentions. Okay, so first we're going to go into a little bit of science, and we're going to explain the torus. Some scientists have noticed that a three-dimensional energy radius exists around all objects. It exists around us, it exists around this, it exists around all objects. It surrounds the objects like a donut of energy with a hole in the middle, and it's called the torus. This energy field corresponds to the object's or being's EMF, and the EMF is also called our aura. And as you've heard me say before, crystals have auras. The field size is dependent upon the size, specific molecular makeup, and dominant oscillatory rate. Now that depends on the oscillatory rate of the object or entity that we're focused on. So in this case, size does matter. The larger the crystal or the stone, the larger the energy field around it will be. So the larger the stone, the larger the torus field will be around the object. To get technical for just a second, a torus is a three-dimensional rotating shell created by energy gyrating around a center axis. This central axis aspect is why I feel it is very important to have a center stone in our crystal grids. Okay, so, and actually, if you have dowsing rods at home, you can actually measure the energy coming off of your grid with the dowsing rods. It's very, very awesome. Science at play there. Okay, one of the first steps you want to take before constructing your grid is decide what your intention is going to be. What do you want to bring about by your grid? Some of the things you could use would be prosperity and abundance, which is what we're doing today, health, vitality, compassion and love for others, romance, self-love, mental clarity, purification and protection, confidence boost, a new career, climb the career ladder. You can do one for chakra balancing. You could do one for world healing and Mother Earth. You could do one for relationships with angels or your spirit guides, or for spiritual growth. And like I said today, I'm doing one of the most popular ones, the ones I get asked about the most, which is wealth and abundance. So let's take a short break here and get everything ready, and I'll be right back. Hi guys, we're back now. I had to let baby girl out. I apologize. We were talking about intentions of our grids. Intention is basically what you want to get out of your grid. You could do it for love, money. We already went over the list. But something we didn't go over is you can also do it for the good of someone else. Like say distance healing, or someone who needs, help with depression, or someone who's having money problems. We could actually set this up for the benefit of someone else, which is always nice. But I want to point out that you should always get the permission of the individual that you're trying to help, because we don't want to take away their free will at all. It's much better to ask and get their permission before you do something along those lines. Okay, now we're going to go over some grid components here. In order to create a crystal grid, you will need several items. You will need your center stone, which we already talked about. And no matter what design template we're doing, or what you choose to do, you should always have a center stone present. The whole bit about the torus of energy, remember that with the crystal grid, the energy surrounding each crystal? That virtual donut of energy revolves around a central axis, and which will now be your chosen center stone. So this will be the central axis, and it will all revolve around this baby here. This piece will be your all-important communicator, acting as the broadcaster for your grid's intentions, sort of like a radio transmission tower. These large transmitting towers, they transform electric energy into a radio frequency that can be picked up by radio receivers, right? So your center stone is going to be performing essentially the same job. It's going to be transforming your intentions into a vibrational frequency and broadcasting them into the universe to the source energy. Again, you really should have one that stands, but I don't have one out here, so for the sake of doing the video, we will do the one that, if you don't have one that stands, then go ahead and do that. Just put one down. Just make sure you have one, and the biggest one at your disposal in your center stone. And it should be a stone that is already incorporated with your grid. Okay, so after the center stone, the next component would be these, what we call supporting stones. And that's going to be all the stones that's going to make up your grid. And again, I don't normally do more than 3 different types because I don't want to get any kind of chaos going. I want to keep it refined and to the point, so the energy torus is really working it and shooting that energy into the universe, to the source energy. Okay, how many stones will you need? Well, that's dependent on your personal preference and the design you choose to use. If it appeals to you and you are called to do so, you can build upon your basic template, making your design more complex and intricate. You may choose to add more dimensions and expand on your design by adding another ring or layer of stone around the first. This is perfectly fine, as long as you adhere to the same original design template. Okay, so like I said, I don't know what I'm going to design today. It's totally going to be off the cuff. It's whatever I feel like doing. Some people choose to add another component to help powerfully reflect or magnify their intentions. This can be done by adding a mirror or a magnifying glass to your grid. How cool is that? I forgot my magnifying glass, but I'm definitely going to use that in my next grid. You can place the magnifying glass or mirror under your entire crystal grid, and that's how you would use that. Next, you'll need to decide upon the location of your grid. I always suggest putting your grid in a sacred space. And a sacred space could be anywhere. It could be a tiny room, it could be a closet, it could be a corner. I've seen people make their little cubby in a car their sacred space, just sacred to you. You may choose to light candles or incense, which I have some sage and dragon's blood going. Excuse me. You may choose to meditate, pray, play calming music, whatever represents sacredness to you and whatever calms you is what you should do. Some also suggest aligning your grid with the north and south magnetic alignment of the planet. Why not? This makes a lot of sense to me, since you are able to take advantage of the magnetic energies of Mother Earth to powerfully intensify our grid. All you need is an inexpensive compass to find magnetic north. So that's what you want to find, magnetic north. I'm going to move the camera here just a little bit so I can maneuver around here. So, okay. Now make sure you use a good compass if you want reliable and relevant information. Once you've located magnetic north, simply align your crystal grid and yourself in the same direction as the needle points on your compass. Do this whenever working with your grid. Now, when working with a compass, be certain that, of course, you're not near any other magnets, speakers, large metal objects, or electronics. Be careful not to wear any belt buckles, metal, jewelry, or watches, since all of these items can meddle with the magnetic field and may cause your compass to point to a false north. Alright, now after setting your grid to magnetic north, if you choose to do that, next up is you want to have an activation wand. which is typically quartz, point, one-sided point. Again, when you're looking for points, you want to make sure they have 6 sides up there that move up to the apex of the crystal. You want to make sure it's at least 2 inches long, and you're going to be using this to activate your grid. You'll use it to direct your intentions and energy into your grid, as well as turn it on. A wand is actually an extension of your EMF field, which is also your aura. And it's intermingled with its own energy, and it allows us to project intention into our grids at the same time, like I said, turning it on. A crystal, mineral, or stone wand is ideal because it will direct, move, and amplify the energies of your grid. Remember, we said quartz is an amplifier. For ease of transmission and communication, an activation wand should ideally be the same type of crystal or stone that you are using in your grid. It doesn't have to be, but it is ideal. So, for example, if I wanted to go that route, I would use my center stone. Nice 6 points up there. No energy leakage up here. These are nice quality from Brazil. We do have them in the shop, the Citrine. I could use this to direct the energy and activate my my grid. So we'll see how I handle that when we get to that point. Let's see. Moving on. You also, for a wand, you could make your wand out of wood, glass, or copper and top it with a crystal. I've seen people with actual, like, nice wand sticks with a crystal wrapped around the tip of it. You could use something like that if you so desire. It's whatever you feel comfortable doing. You also may want to have 2 or 3 wands for varying purposes, depending on the intentions of your grid. Example, if you tend to often use clear quartz and black tourmaline in your grids, you may want to have a wand made of each, and then perhaps a copper wand as more of a natural piece for any other types of grids. If you're creating a crystal grid for another person, for example, to help heal someone or to send them abundance and self-love, it would be helpful to have a photo of that person looking happy and in good health. It's a good idea to be sure the photo was taken while the person was healthy. In a pinch, you could also just simplify this and have their name written on a slip of paper. If your grid is for sending energy to a particular location on the planet, for instance, sending healing energy to the people hurt by an earthquake, you can use a map of that area and just place that under your grid. If your grid's purpose is to generate peace and healing for the entire planet, then a photo of Mother Earth would be ideal to put under your grid. Names and photos under your grid if you're sending the energy from the grid to someone or some location. Now, to further amplify your crystal grid and exponentially increase the energy torus around it, I would suggest the use of an outer crystal grid that will support and surround your main inner grid and magnify its energies. It's not necessary by any means, but it is especially helpful if the stones you have available are very small, or if you are concerned that their energy won't be power enough to do the job. I choose to make my outer grids of clear crystal quartz due to this mineral's ability to amplify energy. So if I decide to make another line, it's going to be in quartz points for amplification. Okay, the outer grid should follow the same design template that your main grid follows. So, for example, if your main inner grid is a hexagon, then you will create your outer grid using 6 clear crystal quartz pieces in a larger hexagon pattern around your main grid. The outer grid can be just a bit larger than your main inner grid, or it can be as large as the room or space you're working in. There really is no limits here. This is entirely up to you. Beware, however, that if you do use an entire room, you will be entering the energy field of the grid whenever you go into that room. This is real. I mean, there's real energy. You can measure it with dowsing rods if you want to do a little science experiment. So if you make one the size of your room, when you walk into that room, you're going to be walking into the middle of this energy torus that we're going to generate here. So sometimes that kind of setup's not really practical. Also, when activating your grid, don't overlook activating the outer grid as well. So you want to activate both the inner and the outer grids. You want to activate every crystal on your grid plate. Now, how to choose crystals for your grid. At this point, you may be wondering how to go about deciding which crystals to use in your crystal grid, right? And there are several ways to do this. I feel the most powerful way is to choose your crystals in a way in which it will yield the best results, is to choose your crystals intuitively. You may be able to feel or sense which crystals belong, or you may get a certain message just knowing, or visions of what stones to use, pictures in your mind of what stones to use. Don't ignore these gut instincts. Follow them. It's there nagging at you for a reason. You can also meditate on which stones to use. Also, if you're simply not getting any messages about which ones to use at all, you can always research the properties of the crystals and stones in your books. So if you're brand new to crystals, there's nothing wrong with researching what you need, what will go well together, or for a particular formula on your grid. Me, like I said, I just put a bunch of abundance and prosperity and wealth crystals on my tray, and I'm not sure still what I'm going to do. But I also put some malachite out. It's copper in its makeup, so it will conduct, and it's a super amplification stone. So I'm going to toss 2 of those in there somewhere. I've got green Adventurine. I've got Citrine. And I've got some Pyrite, all for wealth, abundance, and prosperity. And then I've got Lumerian crystal, laser cut crystal points for amplification. I have a few of those, and then I have some bigger points. You may have heard me say before that I like crystals that stand on their own, and this is the reason I like crystals that stand on their own, like this one here. Is for grids. They're good for grids. And as you can see, I just have some of this is just jewelry pieces. As long as it's a crystal, that's all that matters. Obviously, in this particular setup, size does matter, so you're going to want to pick your biggest pieces that you have of each one. But I have tumbleds here. I have natural standing triangles. I have big chunks, tumbled. I have big points, laser cut points, and I also have the chips in the bottles, and I'll show you how to use that. Now, another way of deciding which stones to use specifically is to use a pendulum. I showed you my pendulum earlier. Here is mine that I made, custom made. I can make you one if you so choose, just let me know. But a pendulum is another way of connecting with your higher self, and a way to choose crystals if you're not intuitive. Not all of us are. Or, you know, that part of yourself may not have been awakened yet. So a pendulum is, I think you will surprise yourself at how well these things work. It taps into your higher self, and you really have to do nothing but hold it still. Okay, now this tool helps you connect to your higher self, tapping into answers you already know on a super conscious level. You can spread out your possible crystal choices on a table. If you're using dowsing rods, you may need to place the crystals on separate tables and very far apart. Use your dowsing equipment and instrument to select the stones. If you're using a pendulum, you can simply ask for a yes or no. If you choose to use the dowsing rods, then you'll be looking for energetic movement from them as you hold them above each stone. Alright, movement will indicate that the stone would be beneficial to your grid. No activity from the rods would be, of course, a sign that you shouldn't include that stone. The more activity you get from the rods, the more that crystal should be included. Now, just to show you, give you an example real quick of how this would work, you would want to spread out your crystals, which I think I'll probably use all of mine, so I don't need to do this. But you would spread out your crystals. You hold your pendulum like this, and you make sure it's still. You decide from the beginning, let's say a forward motion will be yes, and a left to right motion will be no. Okay? So you simply ask your higher self, should I use this crystal in my grid? Swing forward for yes, and swing sideways for no. Let go of your pendulum, and then it should start swinging. See, isn't it? And anybody can do this. Anybody can do this. As you can see, it's swinging forward to back, so that is a yes. So I should use the pyrite. So that's how you use the pendulum. I really like pendulums. They are helpful for people who are not intuitive. It taps into your higher self. Okay, so that's some of the ways you would pick your crystals for the grid. Like I said, I'm going to be using all of mine, I think. Okay, so now we're going to get into the building of the stone, which is really cool, the cool part. Now, like I said, you want to make it on something that's sacred to you. And for me, I use these trays because it's portable and I can just place it anywhere I want. It's got a reflective design on it, which is good, but I am deciding to do a sacred geometry pattern in green. I'm going to lay that down on my grid, and that will amplify the intention of bringing wealth, abundance, and prosperity. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. So let's go ahead and clear all the crystals off that I have. Again, I have green Adventurine, Citrine, Pyrite. I have Lumerian laser cut crystal points, regular crystal points, and a Citrine point for my middle stone. I also have malachite for super amplification of the grid. And I have chips, and we'll get into that a little when we're almost finished. We'll set them over there for now. I have wands for activation. I'm going to set down my geometric pattern, my sacred geometry pattern, and I'm going to place it in the grid there. And now I'm just going to start building. I'm not going to use my center stone until I'm finished activating the grid. Okay? Alright, so I've kind of constructed my grid here, save time so you guys didn't have to watch me do all of that. I've done most of it. I put down citrine, and natural is always best, but if you don't have natural, then you can go to tumbled and polished. So I used all my naturals first, and then I moved on to what I have left. And this is just a basic wealth and prosperity grid setup here. It's like a sideways 8. I'm not sure what that's called, but that's kind of the design I've got going on here. And you can see I have the Lumerian laser cut points directing amplified energy into the grid and through the center. And this is where the center stone will lay right here. Remember I said you do that last. We have malachite here for superpower. We have the quartz points directing the power into the grid. And then we have malachite and pyrite, also powerful stones for attracting wealth and abundance. And then we have got the big point right here, which that will be last. Okay, and one important thing I want to point out here is after you activate your grid, you cannot move it. So you need to make sure that it's in a location where the pets won't move it, it won't get bumped, the kids won't get it down or move it, because once it's moved or jostled, you'll have to reactivate it all over again. So you want to make sure it's in a sacred spot where no one will jostle it or move it around. And now we're getting ready to activate it. All right, so now you want to go into like a calming state. You can do that by the relaxing music, or just breathing in real deep and breathing out, or meditating. Just relax for a few minutes before we start the activation. This is going to allow your brain to descend into alpha brain waves, allowing you to achieve a state of focused attention and intuition. Now, in order to activate or trigger this grid, you're going to need an affirmation. And an affirmation is just a short positive statement summarizing what it is you would like your crystal grid to bring about. Be sure your affirmation is stated in a positive way, rather than stating, "I will not belittle, hold myself back, and second guess myself any longer." You would want to say, "Through self-support and abundant motivation, I will manifest all my dreams." That's just a more positive way to say it. You always want to stay positive with your affirmations. With your activation wand in your hand, and while stating your well thought out affirmation, point the activation wand at the center stone and visualize energy beaming from your body. So we don't have we have chosen to use our center stone as the activation wand. So we're not going to point it at that first. We're going to start in the center at the first stone. And I have an affirmation here that I'm going to repeat. And it is, prosperity is drawn to me. I'm worthy of abundance and wealth. I'm open and receptive to all the wealth and abundance life has to offer me. Okay, then I'm going to move my wand from stone to stone, kind of like connect the dots, linking up the energy from one stone to the next closest stone, and preferably in a clockwise direction. Continue moving the wand, playing energetic connect the dots until you have united all the stones within your grid. So again, I'm going to say the activation affirmation, and then I'm going to start connecting the dots. You're going to want to repeat your affirmation the entire time that we're activating. Okay? We're going to be energetically connecting these crystals together and remain in a positive, calm state while activating. Okay? Now, while activating, you won't actually be touching the stones with the wand. You're simply directing the flow of energy into the grid and guiding it into the sacred geometric pattern you've set up. Now, all the while, you want to be stating your affirmation. As I mentioned, when you state your affirmation, be sure to do it with focused visualization and true intention, infusing emotion into it, as this will set the correct thought forms and vibrational frequencies necessary to trigger this grid. Okay? So here we go. Prosperity is drawn to me. I'm worthy of abundance and wealth. I'm open and receptive to all the wealth and abundance life has to offer me. We're going to start with the inner ring first. We're going to focus, just like in our mind, we're imagining these stones are each activated. Prosperity is drawn to me. I'm worthy of abundance and wealth. I'm open and receptive to all the wealth and abundance life has to offer me. Prosperity is drawn to me. I'm worthy of abundance and wealth. I'm open and receptive to all the wealth and abundance life offers me. Now that we've done the first set of stones on the inner ring, we're going to move to the outer ring and do the same thing. Imagine these stones being activated and like a line of energy being directed to each stone you're pointing at. Prosperity is drawn to me. I'm worthy of abundance and wealth. I'm open and receptive to all the wealth and abundance life offers me. Prosperity is drawn to me. I'm worthy of abundance and wealth. I'm open and receptive to all the wealth and abundance that life offers me. Pointing at each one on the outer ring. Activating in my mind, staying focused. Alright, now that we've gotten all that done, we're going to set down our center stone in the grid. We're going to say our affirmation one more time. And then we're going to thank the universe 3 times. Prosperity is drawn to me. I'm worthy of abundance and wealth. I'm open and receptive to all the wealth and abundance that life has to offer me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now the last step, I told you we were going to be using the little chips in the bottles. Most people don't realize this, but this is an excellent way to use these little chips because they are really small. Just sprinkle them around your grid, just like salt and pepper. Here we're sprinkling a little citrine, and we're sprinkling a little green Adventurine, which is both stones that are in our grid. Just shaking it a little bit like pepper, and to make sure grid all pretty. Alrighty. Although we don't need to reactivate this grid all the time, you do want to give your grid some TLC and attention like once a week. More often if you like. It's totally up to you. You can do this by meditating in front of the grid or simply directing your attention to it whenever you are around it, even if it's on the other side to the world. Remember the morphic field, tap into it. You may want to do some energy work with your grid, such as Reiki also. Now, many ask me how long a grid should remain standing, and I say it's totally up to you. If you feel the grid has accomplished its task, you can take it down and do something else. Or you may want to leave it up erected forever. Perhaps your grid will have worked its magic, unknown science, in one day. I've had a grid set up for as short as 1 hour before, and I've taken it down because I knew it worked and its work was finished. Now, on the other hand, I have had some grids set up for some time and don't know if I will ever take them down. These are my healing grids, and I have one set up for love and compassion. Just do whatever you're called to do. Personally, I would not take a grid down if it has not accomplished its goals, unless I realize there was a component missing, or it's been moved, or I have determined a way to redo it and make it better. So now, also another thing we can do is charge objects with inside the grid. Do you have any items that can benefit from the energy of this grid? Or you can combine their energies with it, enhancing it. It's a two-way street. For instance, perhaps you're going to do a crystal object, a crystal grid to assist in getting a job. You can place objects within the grid that represent accomplishments you've achieved, like diplomas or certificates. You may want to use some herbs or essential oils that are known to enhance job getting boosts. On the other hand, you may want to boost the energy of objects that you can take away with you by placing them within the grid for a period of time. Like, for instance, for this particular grid, maybe lay a dollar bill in the energy torus to soak up that energy, and put it in your purse a couple days later and just keep it in there. That would be a really good wealth and abundance boost. You could even charge yourself by creating a larger crystal grid around you and sitting and meditating in the center of it. Some call this a crystal body layout. Alternatively, you could do a body layout on someone else and surround it with a clear crystal quartz outer grid, creating profound amplification of your intentions. So, like, imagine the intensity, the potent energetic atmosphere if you meditated and visualized in the center of a grid like that. Could you just imagine? Okay, so now we're just going to go over quickly the checklist one more time to creating your own little grid. You want your center stone. You want the surrounding stones. If you want a compass, it needs to be directed towards magnetic north. You need an activation wand, photo maps, pictures, names, any items to be charged, and you need to decide whether you want an outer grid, which we did here. Planning wise, you want to write down your affirmation or your intention, what you want to get out of the grid. What sacred geometric pattern will you use? Mine's I'm not sure what it's called, but it's like an 8, and it's on sacred geometry green. for wealth and abundance. Do you need to print out or draw a template or anything? Where will you physically locate your grid where it won't be moved? Will it require an outer grid? The steps: gather all your components, including all necessary crystals. Create your sacred space. Burn some incense, dragon's blood, sage, sweetgrass. Go into your alpha state of mind and make your intention clear in your mind's eye. Just basically calm down, take deep breaths in and out, and set up your grid after that. Insert any objects you may want to be charging. Like for this particular grid, like I said, you might want to do a dollar bill or a quarter. Activate your grid while stating and feeling the intentions of your affirmation. And you want to keep, wow, I can feel the energy off that really right here. Energize your affirmation with powerful visualization. And don't forget to pay attention to your grid. Take care of it with love and showing it some TLC. So I hope you guys have learned at least how to do the prosperity grid. You can experiment, you can Google, find out specific grid formats, but I really do recommend using your own gut and your intuition on this, because the crystals really will guide you. If you don't think you have intentions, remember, you can use a pendulum. You will always get the correct answer from your higher self by using one. We do make them custom only for customers. So if you would like one made for yourself, it comes formulated in your personal soul number and your choice of third eye and crown chakra stones. Also your choice of pendulum crystal at the bottom. So that's a reminder about that. Yeah, so I think that's about it, everybody. And it can be any pattern you want. Always put in some points pointing inward to direct the energy to your center point and up and out to the universe. One that stands up is ideal, the biggest one you have for that particular type of crystal. But if you don't have one that stands, then something like this will be fine. And I think that's about it, everybody. If you have any questions about grids or anything that I've went over today, shoot me a message. Feel free. Don't forget to visit our site, q2paranormal.com, our crystals group, Q2 Crystals. We have games every day, and I thank everybody for the love and support that you show Chris and I on a daily basis. We love you, and we appreciate you. Namaste, everybody.